Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first Art Doctor on location. Today we're in the beautiful Yarra Valley, and I'm about to explore the Tarrawarra Museum of Art, where there's a wonderful exhibition on Sidney Nolan, myth writer. I'm here to give a workshop, but first I get to have a look around, and I thought I'd bring you with me, and we can look at this iconic painting and all the associated works together. The Tarrawarra Museum of Art is in the middle of paradise, the Yarra Valley, about an hour or so outside Melbourne. And it's quite a big deal that this exhibition of one of Australia's most famous modern artists has finally defeated COVID to actually open. This Sidney Nolan exhibition is the first time that his work of the mid-50s to the mid-60s has been brought together again from all over the world. I've been invited today to lead a workshop on how to write about art, something that isn't easy, but when done right is evocative and poetic. I'm using 3 works in the exhibition as examples for the writing, and we're going to have a look at one of them in this video. But first, let's talk about Sidney Nolan. Sidney Nolan was born in 1917 in Melbourne. He was a prolific modern artist who never stayed with one particular style of painting, but evolved his whole career. He led a bohemian life, and though he served in World War II, he deserted in 1944, afraid of being sent to the front. He lived under an assumed name until 1949, when the government, quote-unquote, discharged him. Themes of nationalism, patriotism, and war dominate his work. But as a typical modern artist, he presents these concepts as ambiguous. He's not really patriotic or nationalistic, but he uses his art to question what those things are and where they come from. Though most famous for his Ned Kelly series, which shows various scenes in the life of the infamous and iconically Australian bushranger, later on he would address war more directly by looking at a more recent national event, the making of the Anzacs. Am I the only one who thinks it's strange that the founding Australian myth actually takes place in Turkey? But yes indeed, there in the trenches of World War I, Australian somehow became something separate from British with the legendary bravery of the Anzac troops. They battled on through the horrendous and gruesome fighting at Gallipoli, earning them the nickname diggers, presumably because they were really good at digging trenches. The reports of their bravery earned them the admiration of all the other Allied troops, as well as the adoration of their compatriots at home. This became a defining moment for Australia, a moment when they broke away from being a colony and became a new and proud nation in their own right. In fact, Anzac Day is still celebrated every 25th of April with parades, memorials, and services of remembrance. And just in case you think that over 100 years would dampen the Aussie pride on the matter, I give you Exhibit A, a truck I passed on my way to the museum. Those are World War I Anzac troops, and above them is a line from the famous poem by Lawrence Binyon, recited at every Anzac Day. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. So yes, this is a very big deal, and a huge part of Australian national identity. So let's look at one of Nolan's works from this exhibition and how he struggled to understand his Australianness inside the myth of the Anzac. All right, I'm in and ready to teach my workshop, and we're in front of the amazing myth writer. Isn't it beautiful? Done with white glue, scraped over the surface to create a kind of strange underwater effect. The myth writer was done in 1958 and 1959 in a style that was new for Nolan. He painted a colorful composition, but then covered it with PVA glue that had a bit of pigment added. He then scraped away the glue, revealing the figures underneath. This gave the painting texture, but also a sense of otherworldliness, a feeling of floating or being underwater. And the colors that have come through are shocking. Primary blotches of red, blue, and yellow without context. They aren't related to the horse or rider, really. They just exist in the background and are more visible where the glue has been scraped away. So what is happening here? We can make out a horse and rider. The horse is strange looking, almost as if it was put together as a puzzle with an eye that looks like a vortex of fire. Nolan was fascinated with ancient Greek mythology, and he used one of the horses from the Parthenon friezes, then as now in the British Museum, as a model for this horse. So we have an actual ancient Greek horse, but what about the rider? We can tell he is more modern because of his hat, his distinctly Anzac hat. So this is an Anzac soldier sitting backwards on an ancient Greek horse, being pulled along by the strange power of myth into battle. He doesn't resist and seems resigned to his fate. For Nolan, myths were bits of timeless knowledge that transcended generations. The Greeks saw the cycle of war and violence as inevitable, and Nolan depicts the Anzac soldier sucked up into that same pitiless vortex. Is this the Aussie digger? He doesn't seem to have any will or power of his own. He doesn't even have any arms. Digging would be difficult. As Nolan was aware, that glorious Battle of Gallipoli was an absolute bloodbath. Over 100,000 soldiers died. The Allies lost. Is there any glory in that? Nolan returns again and again to myth in these works, examining recent Australian myths in light of more ancient ones. Not only was this because Gallipoli and Troy were quite close geographically, but because Nolan believed in the ripple effect of war described in the ancient myths and poems. It affects the soldiers, yes, but also their families, friends, and the whole of society. Rumor has it that Nolan was a bit of a fatalist. He believed the cycles of war and violence the ancient myths described couldn't be escaped. But just by questioning the narrative, by reframing the Aussie digger as a helpless pawn drawn into war, I think he has made a change. Like many in the 20th century, he questioned the wisdom of glorifying the bravery of those who have no say in their actions or their fate. Many new wars have been fought between when these paintings were first exhibited and now, yet their ambiguous response to nationalism and their self-awareness of myth is just as potent as they were 60 years ago. Are these cycles of violence unavoidable? Or are they part of the story we tell ourselves? Can we question these stories? Can we change them? Well, everyone, thank you for joining me at the Sydney Nolan exhibition. I hope you found that interesting and enlightening in some way. It's just nice to be out lately, isn't it? Let's just face it. So remember, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.